Sega Game Gear on the Nintendo Switch 2 online service expansion pack. Whew! Yes, the Nintendo Switch 2 is slowly approaching and we already got the reveal. So now we are going to talk about the Sega Game Gear. Now, for those who don't know what the Sega Game Gear is, it is Sega's handheld little contraption that came out in the 90s in response to the Nintendo Game Boy. Yes, the successful Nintendo Game Boy. Just a masterpiece. So Sega wanted to create their own little mini masterpiece as well. So they came out with the Game Gear. Now, wasn't a bad little thing. It was actually a really good thing. Alright? It was an improvement of the Game Boy, obviously, because you know the Sega seen what Nintendo did, and obviously they did it, copied it, and of course added things in it to make it better than the Game Boy, like it having its own light up screen, like their screen lit up. Okay, the Game Boy screen did not light up, but the Game Gear did, and it had color, which the Game Boy did not have color. But one of the biggest issues with the Game Gear was the battery life, yes, and also that it was really big and bulky. You know, it was sideways, so it made it more comfortable than the Game Boy, but it was bigger and bulky, whatever. And the battery life was horrible. This thing took about 6 AA batteries. Okay, that is a lot of batteries, and you probably got a few hours of power until they all died. So that is where, you know, it kind of fell off, and what are the biggest issues of it? It is what it is. And I believe the Game Boy only took like 2 to 4 AA batteries. I can't remember. I know the big old Game Boy took a pretty hefty amount of batteries, but it lasted way longer than the Game Gear did. But nevertheless, Game Gear on the Nintendo Switch 2 online service would just be a dream. Okay, that would be amazing, and it is obviously possible because we have Sega Genesis on the Nintendo Switch online service. So why couldn't we get the Game Gear? That is from Sega, also on the Nintendo Switch 2 online service. Now, we all know that the Nintendo Switch 2 is going to have the online service because it already said that whatever the online service on the Switch is going to carry over to the Nintendo Switch 2. Now, they're going to need new consoles on there, new console apps of the consoles, whatever, on there to promote the Switch 2 and to push people that get the Switch 2 also to get the online service or to continue the online service on the Switch 2. So what